Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to Intuitive Angling, and appreciate you guys joining us for today's video. Got Kim with me today. I was talking about yesterday. We are going to have a little question and answer session here on today's episode. We get thousands of comments and questions on the 3 YouTube channels every week, and do our best to answer them and try to respond. But it's like it's impossible to answer everything with everything we got going on here. So what we did today is we went through and picked out, a handful of questions that the viewers have asked us. So we're going to go through there, sort of address these questions and answer them. These are some of the ones we get a lot. They're sort of reoccurring. So they're the ones we picked out. So we're going to get into that in today's episode here. And if you guys like the video, we might do some more of this type of stuff. Also, guys, before we get started real quick, I just want to remind you about we are going to be live streaming, a private live stream here in a couple weeks probably. This is going to be for channel members and Patreon members of the channel. So if you're interested in being part of that live stream, just go to the YouTube homepage here, click on the join button for the membership options, or you can go into the description of the video and join the Patreon program. So looking forward to that and really appreciate that. Okay, what do we got going here? I don't know everything she picked out here, so this is something we're gonna have to.
It's very random, the things that I picked out, and also, guys, I just want to tell you that this is completely out of my comfort zone, but I just wanted to assist Randy with this, but I don't know how often this will happen, but we'll try it out and see how it goes. So do you want me to start?
Yeah, just start. We'll just go through and.
Nice things? Or?
Yeah, I know some of these, I don't know everything here, so just fire away.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read you, I'll go ahead and start with a comment and you can respond to it. Yeah. This guy has created his retirement fund by creating chaos and negativity to drive clicks, drama sells, smart move, I guess.
Speaking of me being that guy, I get this a lot. I get the whining and complaining, drama creation, all that type of stuff. But here's the thing, and here's what my point on. It's like if there's a problem in the fishing industry, I don't care what it is, you can't solve that problem unless you acknowledge the problem. And what I try to do is I try to bring awareness to things that are going on in the sport as far as the sustainability of it and the threat to it and the threat to traditions of it, and just sort of give you my opinion about it. And sometimes that comes across as, being complaining and negative. But one of the things about it is, if you've ever watched some of the videos that I do on this, I always try to offer a solution. I just don't, complain for no reason at all. So I always try. Yeah, but yeah, we get that a lot, so that's just part of it there.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Good Lord, Randy, don't you ever give the live scope comments a rest.
Yeah, that's one of the last 3 years. No, I never will. I'm not going to give live scope a rest because it is the most destructive thing to the future of the sport. I mean, when you have relegated bass fishing, which is fishing is it's a pure, natural, connected event where I just think that you fish to find the fish. And when you have some type of an artificial, I use the term, it's like an umbilical cord of success. I just think it's destructive to the sport. And so I'm not going to give it a rest. And it's I don't want to ever normalize it, because what happens is after people like myself have brought out, all the problems with it, people think just, we'll let it die and then it can just flourish on its own. But I'm just going to keep calling it out as I see it. And most of the people are on my side too. I mean, you've seen the comments there, and I put it 85% of the people agree with what I'm talking, and 10 or 15.
I don't know.
It depends.
50-50, but yeah.
Yeah, the point is, no, I'm not going to give that a rest. I got my heels dug into that.
Okay. Next, well, this is a question.
Okay.
It says, what was your biggest surprise when Bassmaster flew you to the Classic without telling you where you were going?
Okay, that is before my time. The Classic in the 70s, they never told the qualifiers where the Classic was going to be at. They actually said, you qualify for the Classic, they get them on a plane, And during the middle of the flight, they used to tell them what lake they were going to, which I thought was great. It was like an equal playing field. But they stopped doing that before I started fishing. They used to fly us to the tournaments, to all the Bassmaster Classics, and they used to provide boats and everything, but they don't do that anymore. But I think they quit doing that in the 70s because people couldn't plan their vacations around it. But it's a pretty cool idea though.
Okay, the next one is a question. It says, what if I hook a 10-pounder and have 4-pound line on?
Yeah, well, anytime you hook a fish that big with light line, it's going to be a challenge getting it in. But I caught a 27-pound gar on 4-pound line crappie fishing one time. You can land giant fish on 4-pound line. Number one thing you have to do is learn to back reel. You know, I'm adamant about you never should use a drag on a spinning outfit. If you back reel, you can handle the biggest fish in the lake. Number two is you have to know how much pressure you can put on it. It's like you can only put so much pressure on it before you break the line. And basically though, on that line of line with that big of a fish, you can't move, you can't turn the fish. Like the fish is going to go where it wants to. So you just have to apply pressure on the fish, not enough to break the line, and sort of let the fish do what it wants to. If it happens to go under a dock or a brush pile, you're probably out of luck. It's going to break you off. But as long as that fish stays in open water and doesn't get around anything, you can land huge fish on 4-pound line.
Okay. So the next thing is a comment that someone had made. It said, social media is the worst thing that has ever happened to bass fishing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's like social media has completely changed bass fishing, especially on the tournament end of it, because it used to be back, prior to social media, which wasn't that long ago, that the only way that you could get sponsorships as a pro angler is through your performance in tournaments. And now tournaments don't mean anything to sponsors. I've heard of a bunch of marketing people say that, to their pro anglers, they say, you are not a pro angler. You're simply, a social media influencer that happens to fish. Because the amount of exposure somebody can get from social media, it dwarfs anything from tournaments, even if you do good in tournaments. But another thing it's done about it is it's educated the anglers to the point where the skill level overall as anglers in the country are just skyrocketing compared to what it was 20 years ago. It's like everybody knows so much about fishing. And say, for example, like throwing a spinnerbait. It may have taken me 10 years to master a spinnerbait on my own, but now you can go to YouTube and you can find a video on anything you want to about spinnerbait fishing and learn about it in 30 minutes. So it's shortened the learning curve to next to nothing is what it's done.
Okay, got, a positive comment here. It says, Randy, keep fighting the good fight against forward-facing sonar.
I get that a lot. It is that, and that is the good fight, guys. Make no mistake about it. Is technology has no place in bass fishing. That's not what it's about. It has no place in hunting. It has no place in fishing. It's great for things like, for medical advances and scientific advances. Technology is awesome, but that's not what fishing is, man. It's like when you interject technology into fishing or into any outdoor activity, it diminishes the intrinsic value of that sport. So there's a lot of people that agree with that.
So something that I want to add to that is, I don't know a lot about professional fishing, and 10 years ago I didn't even know that was something that even existed. I remember when I first saw a picture of Randy, I couldn't figure out what he did. I was like, is this guy, is he like a race car driver? Or I just didn't know that professional fishing was a thing and that you could make a living at it. But kind of when I went to tournaments, for the first time, when I was able to, some tournaments I could practice with you and others, it was off limits. But, when I would go out with Randy fishing, we had went back into this cove, and there were other anglers back there, and I was sitting in the boat just kind of looking around, and I I didn't see people fishing. I just saw them have this, they were bent down in the boat and they had something they were, looking in the, what is it called?
A flogger. I think it was Lake Champlain we were at together. They were looking for bedding bass with a flogger.
No one was making any cast. They were just looking in the water, and something about that just didn't seem right to me as an outsider. Take this with a grain of salt because, like I said, I don't know much about fishing. But yeah, when Randy started telling me about that and forward-facing sonar, I was just wondering, well, where do they draw the line? Where does it stop? So I do understand Randy's stance on it. Yeah, do I hear him, gripe about it a lot? Yes, I do. And sometimes I'm like, man, can you lay off that for a minute?
Well, I'll tell you guys one thing. Kim sort of keeps me level because
I try.
Yeah, if she wasn't here to sort of be the voice of reason, I would be way out there, probably further than I am now as far as my stance about that. But
I just have to reel them back in sometimes.
Yeah. I get a lot of stuff though. It's like I pose that question about technology and forward-facing sonar to people that don't fish at all.
Yeah.
They don't even know what a fish is, and I've just laid out that scenario for them, what it actually is. And the first thing they all say is like, "Well, that sounds like cheating to me." And it's like, in my opinion, it's legalized cheating. So that's just pretty common way of thinking on that.
Well, a client of mine who also knows nothing about fishing, she has a nephew that started fishing tournaments, and he was very much a person that used live scope and all of the technology. And she came to me and said, he actually understands what Randy is talking about now because he would find these big fish and, he would catch them, but by the time that they came up to the surface, they were dead. And she said, they were these huge bass that he was catching, but they died. I don't know.
Yeah, barotrauma and, their bladders, fill up and they can't go back down.
Is it if you bring them up
quickly?
Or?
Yeah, there's a pressure difference and, that causes them to go upside down and people can fizz them, but then you damage the bladder with it, and then you got the barotrauma issues that damage their eyes and their internal organs. So there's a lot of bad stuff that go with that.
Well, I'm still learning things, I guess. So anyway, take what I say with a grain of salt because again, I don't know anything about fishing really. So don't come at me with the comments. Okay, we got another comment here. Randy, do you want some cheese with that wine?
I get that all the time. There's 2 or 3 different cliche catchphrases that the haters always toss this way. It's like, Randy, you want any cheese with your wine? Whining and complaining and moaning all the time. I mean, I get the same thing with that. So, but you're gonna get that. It's like, I know that you said a lot of times, it's like, doesn't that bother you when people, say that type of stuff? That you got to have sort of a thick skin because you can't be all things to all people. And, there's always going to be trolls. And I always use the examples like I could tell you about your grandma's chocolate chip cookie recipe, how great it is. And there's going to be some people that say, that's the worst thing I've ever tasted. That's terrible. So that's just sort of the nature of the reality with it there.
There was a comment here about one of your recent videos that you just posted. It said, how do you find the blueback herring in the guts?
Yeah.
So you might want to explain.
Okay, well, first of all, blueback herring are, bait fish that live in the eastern part of the United States for the most part. Lakes like Lake Hartwell, South Carolina, Lake Murray, North Carolina, Lake Lanier, Georgia, some of those eastern fisheries. And that's what's changed the fishery a lot. It's made a lot more fish to spin, but most of the time, those blueback herring, when you're talking about the guts or the ditches, if you go back into like a cove off a major creek arm and you get your boat in the middle of the cove and go about halfway back in the cove, turn on your 2D sonar. You don't need forward-facing sonar. Turn on your 2D sonar and just graph the middle of that cove, you'll probably be able to see, you know, different type of blueback herring schools down there at times. But they are roamers. They're out all over the place. One day they'll be on the surface. The next day they'll be 5 feet under the water. The next day they'll be 20 foot under the water. So that's usually how I go about it there.
Well, let's see. Another question. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted here. Someone today had a question. He said, how hung up should we be on the wind when you can't get set up facing it?
When you can't get it facing it. Okay, that's a long, complex question to answer, but let me address the fact that you can't get it facing the wind. Let me give you guys a piece of advice on bass fishing. Whenever possible, never fish into the wind. You never want to fish into the wind. The only time that you ever want to fish into the wind is if you've got a piece of structure like a brush pile in 20 foot of water or a ledge or something that you're trying to cast specifically to that spot where you have to, you can't like blow past it or make different angles. You got to cast right there. That's the only time you should ever fish into the wind. The rest of the time, you always want to fish with the wind because number one, fishing with the wind, you're a lot stealthier. You don't have to use the trolling motor as much. You can let the wind drift you into places. You can make a longer cast with the wind. Your cast lays better. The presentation of your lure is more natural. You can get the bait deeper. I'm adamant, I never fish into the wind unless I absolutely have to, casting just one piece of cover or something.
Okay. Do you think you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, we are, we're 16 minutes into the video here, so I think that's good. But anyway, guys, appreciate y'all tuning in. If you guys like this video and you like the questions and, you know, throwing it up like this, put some comments in below. Let us know if you like that. And you know,
we could come back and do a part 2.
Yeah,
possibly.
Or a regular feature. We get comments all the time, so it's like something we can do forward if you guys like the content. But anyway, much appreciated, and thanks to Kim for being part of this. Appreciate that, and we'll check in later.
Please be nice.
Yeah, we'll check in later, guys.
Thanks, guys.